Hello, good morning and welcome to the Sunday Supplement. Chelsea's first test, Chelsea's first defeat, but Roberto Mancini still says they'll win the title. Another week from hell for Liverpool, and is the pressure getting to Arsene Wenger? No pressure then on Paul Hayward, the chief sports writer of The Observer. Matt Dickinson is here from The Times, and Oliver Holt is the chief sports writer of The Daily Mirror. And these are the kind of headlines you're waking up to this morning. Carlos Tevez scoring the winning goal for Manchester City against Chelsea yesterday with a tribute to his mother. Happy birthday, Mum, I'm assured that says. Interesting story here about the manager Mancini blowing his top after a huge row with one of the physios at City, complaining about the number of injuries he's got. They had to be pulled apart by Brian Marwood, one of the chiefs at Manchester City. Interesting story about how he's controlling the players. We'll take a detailed look at Mancini in a couple of minutes. This is another interesting story here. Another protest at Liverpool by Liverpool fans yesterday after the draw against West Brom. They staged a sit-in on the Kop, and Steven Gerrard, the captain, applauded them as he was warming down with teammates. Can't keep Arsenal out of the headlines. This is Almunia here making a mistake and getting criticised for it, and Arsene Wenger being linked with Liverpool goalkeeper Pepe Reina. We'll have a look at all those over the course of the Sunday Supplement. This is the Mail on Sunday's pullout. We still won't win the title, says Mancini. That's the headline that I gave you. He is insistent. He said before the game that Chelsea would win it, and even beating them, he won't change his mind. Interesting views by Paul here in his column in The Observer. Mancini preaches a gospel of power. We'll be coming to him on Mancini's attitude in a moment. Wenger is losing it. A number of headlines all week about Arsene Wenger. Harry Redknapp said that the pressure was getting to him. Is it? We'll find out a little bit later on. This is Arsene Wenger in the News of the World's pullout. Why, oh why didn't I sign a goalkeeper, is their take on that as the head goes in the hands once again. A twist on the Liverpool saga here in the Sunday Telegraph. Threat of administration looms at Liverpool. That story just will not go away. We'll take a detailed look at Liverpool as well. And this is the Sunday Mirror. Escape route, play on words there for Rooney. Sir Alex Ferguson this week said that Rooney was struggling to cope with the amount of media attention on him. We'll look at that, and they're saying here, the Sunday Mirror, that Barcelona will take him in January if United will sell. Don't see that happening, but it's a twist on the Rooney story. Just draw your attention here. This is Robert Green, the West Ham goalkeeper, making a gesture to journalists at Upton Park after his great display for West Ham in the win over Spurs. And Oliver Holt was there, and we'll get his views on Green and what happened exactly. But we start at Eastlands. Paul, you were there yesterday. The significance of Manchester City's win, even though that Mancini's playing it down.
Yeah, Mancini said that just because they beat Chelsea doesn't make everything okay, which seems a sensible attitude. I mean, he spent so much of the season so far sermonising at the players about how they need to change their mentality and how they need to forget about days off and so on. So it's easy when you're listening to all that to become distracted from what's happening on the pitch. And what they did yesterday was score their first big win of the season, if you ignore the 3-0 win over Liverpool, who are in a bit of disarray. So that was a great win for them. It was, I think, the most encouraging thing for City fans is that the players were able to go nose to nose with Chelsea, who are a very powerful physical side. You know, they got involved with them, they stood up to them, and they overcame them really through sort of persistence and power rather than any skill or kind of entertainment value, really. I still don't think that any team with De Jong and Barry and Yaya Toure in the same midfield is going to win the Premier League. But I think the attitude was so good with the City players yesterday that you could feel the whole club lift on the back of that result. Yeah.
Significant, Ollie, the fact that they've beaten Chelsea. I mean, is Mancini playing games with Chelsea and other managers by saying, oh, we can't win the league and Chelsea will win it anyway?
I think he is, yeah. I think it's just a very kind of obvious kind of attempt to put pressure on other people and take pressure off himself. But I agree with Paul. I think it was a very important win for Mancini. I mean, I think he's at a stage and at a club where, you know, if he's not in the top 4 by the beginning of November, he's probably out of a job. So, I mean, there's an immediate significance for every result for him from that point of view. I think they're already at a stage, City, where they're going into games knowing they must-win games for them sometimes. So I think it was a big result for them, and you know, some kind of justification for some of the buys and the buying policy that Mancini's made. I mean, I think some of his buys have been good, Milner in particular, but like Paul, I worry a little bit about the lack of creativity in midfield. I mean, it's probably the wrong time to make this point, but as you said, I was at West Ham Tottenham yesterday. Tottenham lost the game, but they've got Van der Vaart and Modric in the same midfield, and they're an absolute joy to watch. As I say, wrong time to make the point because they lost the game, but nevertheless, you compare that creativity in that team to the kind of desert, really, of creativity there is at City, and you worry a little bit about their style.
Do you think, Matt, that he's made a mistake? I mean, they've spent 600 million to come out and say that we're not going to win the league. Is that what the owners want to hear? Is that what the fans want to hear?
Well, it's not what the fans want to hear. I mean, certainly before the game, I think they'd have picked up the papers on Saturday morning when he said Chelsea are going to win the title easily, and thought, what's this guy playing at? Now, he can say, well, look, there was method in it. I was trying to take the pressure, as Ollie says, a sort of fairly transparent way of trying to take the pressure off his own players. But I mean, I think what Paul alluded to there is a real fascinating story. It's just that there is even Tevez on Saturday morning was talking about the sort of fragile peace that there is between him and Mancini, and between that dressing room and Mancini, double training.
That's why Mancini made him captain.
But yeah,
I mean, I think that's a fairly obvious.
Double training sessions. Mancini keeps talking about the fact that English players don't like hard work. They're not used to double sessions every day. He's built this training hill at Manchester City. He's working them harder probably than any players in the country. Now, he will have his very good reasons for that, but it has created tension. He's seen as aloof. He doesn't have sort of a warm relationship with his dressing room. Now, that doesn't mean to say they can't have success, but it does mean that they need these big wins, otherwise everything will get pretty fractious.
So do you think he's making a mistake in how he's handling things or not?
No, well, I say
it's his way, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you mentioned about the story about the injury and the physio. I mean, it's his way to work them harder than most clubs physically. But obviously, he thinks that can work, and they shouldn't have injuries. And clearly, he's blaming some of the medical staff for the fact that they have had. I mean, he lost three or four defenders.
This is a Neil Ashton story in the News of the World. Mancini has had an amazing bust-up of one of his backroom team. It's a physio called Jamie Murphy. Mancini is furious with City's medical department over the club's crippling injury list, and Brian Marwood, the football administrator, was forced to intervene. Now, that's not how to handle the situation. Does that mean the pressure's getting to him? Or
well, no, I don't. I've just got to say, I think it's just this tension about how hard he's working. He's very fixed in his methods. He's not a guy who's particularly willing to compromise. I mean, it brought him some success at Inter Milan. I mean, quite how much credit we should give him for those titles is still up for debate because of the whole Italy scandal. How good Mancini is as a manager is still up for debate.
Yes.
And what makes it fascinating is that he's doing it with this fragile relationship with the dressing room, which, it will be forgotten as long as they pull off big wins like this, but is just crackling away under the surface.
And he's also doing it so publicly now as well. I mean, he's every day practically he's talking about the players and their days off and how they've got to forget about their days off. And it's a risky strategy, that, because it's one thing to do that privately, but to tell everybody in the whole game that he's got a problem with his players and they're constantly thinking about days off is quite. It could backfire on him. And if you think about the owners sitting down there in Abu Dhabi, they spent £600 million, and they're probably reading this thinking, hang on, these players we're paying £180,000 a week, they're going on about their days off, So it does create a kind of bad image, I think, for that squad. Maybe he's challenging them to respond to that by doing what he wants them to do, which is to apply themselves against, West Brom and Sunderland as they do against the big clubs.
And they did work hard yesterday. I mean, if you're looking for sort of, he says this, how do they react to it on the pitch, then you can't fault them for intensity yesterday.
From what I hear,